IIT graduates is the lack of social skills. So I just wanted to ask Dr. Sexton, where do you see the role for social responsibility, ethics, and doing the right things in the education process?
Well, first, I don't want to accept by silence your critique of IIT graduates. I'll offer no comment on that, except to say that the ones that I've met, including the dean, are quite remarkable in their social skills. So, it's interesting. In his remarks, the dean said something which I found quite profound in an early part when he said that this will not be, as the last century was the American century, this will not be the Chinese century. And I don't think it will be the Chinese century or the American century or the Indian century. I think it will be the century, as I foreshadowed in my remarks, in which well, let me put it this way. I went with my family to the North Pole this summer. We love to go into the wilderness in part because it reminds us to be humble. And when you traverse a glacier that's 90 miles wide, when you're in the presence of creatures that go back billions of years, it's hard to feel the hubris that at least Americans tend to feel and men of modernity tend to feel. On the other hand, if one is a theologian, as I am, as well as an academic lawyer, one realizes that we moved to the point where we are at the pinnacle of this evolutionary process that goes back these billions of years, and we're perhaps at this second axial moment where we as a humankind are either going to get it right or we're going to say all of that progress was for naught. That's an important moment. And I think what will happen in this century is that, because I am a progressive and an optimist, that we will develop a global civil society which will have leaders, and it will be the global century, not the Chinese century, and not in an economic sense. We noticed it first in an economic sense, and that will be part of it, but in a way the least important part. And one of the things that we've seen, for example, in NYU Abu Dhabi, just to take a case in point. Now here we partnered with the government in Abu Dhabi to open what is the first liberal arts college in the Arab and Muslim world. And it got off with such spectacular success. We had 9,000 applications for 100 spots in the opening class. And those students came from 40 different countries. Their records, they turned down NYU New York and Harvard and Oxford and Beida and IIT to come to a small building in downtown Abu Dhabi, because our 4.5 million square foot campus will not be open until 2014 when the government finished building it for it. And these, we ended up with 150 because the yield was higher than any college had ever gotten. These kids, the median one speaks 4 languages. The 75th percentile SAT in math was 800. SAT in verbal 780. Why did they come? Why did they walk away from schools that were much more established, that had huge campuses? Because they met each other. Because they're cosmopolitans, and they wanted to be the leaders of global civil society. And then that caused the Chinese came to us. And the Chinese government said, we're the first university authorized to operate on our own inside of China, the first with Ministry of Education approval. And Shanghai and Pudong are building us a campus just as Abu Dhabi did. And why? because they wanted to be part of this cosmopolitan network. And I want to emphasize, these are not branch campuses, so it's not a question of it's fully complementary to what the dean said. It's not a question of going in and saying, we know China or we know Abu Dhabi better than the local universities do. There are great universities in China. There are good universities in Abu Dhabi. But we're bringing a network, and it goes directly to your point. And I think the key thing for the great universities of the world, and the IITs are certainly in that group, what we have to focus on is, of course, giving the great educations we give for the mind. But we have to also be very conscious of the fact that we have to train ecumenical people. And that's why I take such great joy from the report that the dean gave about the fact that we don't know where those students that graduate from Abu Dhabi or NYU Shanghai or NYU New York or Harvard Business School or the IITs are going to go. Because they're more and more going to want to live a life in many places if they are at the very most talented edge. And I think those are the people we have to concentrate on building as leaders for this global civil society.
Thank you. All right, we'll go to the questions. We'll start here.
Hi, this is Manya Ranjan, IIT Delhi, working with McKinsey & Company. I'll risk $25 out here and make a half a statement that thanks a lot.
That's $25.
Thanks a lot for your comments about the globalization of education. The other trend that is affecting education in the last 3 to 5 years has been the use of technology in education. That's the world of iPads and applications and online degrees and distance learning programs. So much so that there's a fear that the classroom education could well be the 20th century phenomenon. How does your esteemed education institutions prepare for it or make sure that you stay at the forefront of it, or do you think that this is not that big a thing that it is made out to be?
So my view of this is that there is something, and all of you who went to IIT know this, there's something about being in the presence of other people that is far more important than just the content that you could get from a great teacher. I have no doubt that there will be online sources where if all you cared about was content, you would get superior content that you could get at any great university in the world. Even today, we're moving there, right? So you can get the great lectures at MIT. It's one of the first universities that went out and said, we're going to make all of our content available throughout the world. I promise you, I don't think that that's going to diminish people who want to come and spend time at MIT. Because if you walk the infinite corridor there and you have to hang out in a lab and you meet other crazy people who we all did at IIT, you learn more from them. And that moment of being in the presence of others is such a powerful part of education that reducing education to content, I think, is a very limited way of thinking about education. So I have no doubt that this trend to create online education is a very powerful trend. And many, many people in the world will benefit from it. Sal Khan is trying to do it all the way from K through 12 education, and others are trying to do it for higher education. And we should welcome this trend. We should welcome this trend because at least it makes knowledge, just like Wikipedia and Google and other things made knowledge accessible to people all over the world. But I still think that we will all, as human beings, there will be a time in our life when we will want to spend 4 years, 2 years, 1 year, some period of time in the company of other remarkable people like us. And what we will learn from them can never be brought online. And I continue to believe that in that sense, just like Nalanda used to be a place to which people used to go from all over the world a very long time ago, and American universities have become the place to which people come today. Universities all around the world will continue to be a place like this.